breaking news. The first wife of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini, Sibongile Zulu, and her two daughters have been granted leave to appeal a court ruling which dismissed their challenge of his will. It's unclear how this court ruling will impact this weekend's traditional coronation of King Misuzulu, kaZwelithini. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo joins us live from KwaZulu-Natal. Ziyanda, great to catch up with you. It all seems to be unraveling before our very eyes.
Appeal in the Supreme Court in Bloemfontein basically paves the way and gives a possibility then and an indication for a court interdicting, of course, tomorrow's court proceedings. You'll recall that the first wife of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini Zulu, Sibongile Zulu, and her two daughters took the issue of the late King's will on review. They believed that it had been forged. The first wife also contesting that she entered into a marriage with the late king. It was a civil marriage, and she wanted also by default then to challenge then the validity of the other 5 marriages of the late king. But also within that there was an application to halt the coronation of King Misuzulu Zwelithini pending then the outcomes of the issue of the will. And someone who is who speaks on behalf of His Majesty in the communications office is Shalom, but you're also a historian. We must also reflect that. Perhaps let's reflect on this court challenge. What happens now if, for instance, a court interdict is filed?
As far as we are concerned, the coronation of His Majesty is going ahead tomorrow. It's a very joyous day for us. Yesterday, he did all the other ceremonies that are supposed to happen when we have got a new king, and we're continuing, and we're very, very excited. As far as the matter in court, there's matter for the legal area, but we are continuing. We're here at Gwakangela Palace in Ngcobo on a very cold, windy day, but we're very happy, and the law will take its course, and we're going right on ahead.
Let's reflect on the processes even leading up to tomorrow. Yesterday, the king went to go hunt a lion. What is the significance and the importance of this for the AmaZulu nation?
Oh, well, don't get me started. It's an amazing, it's a bravery thing. It's just a tradition. When a new king gets into the throne, it's one of the ceremonies that must happen. Because remember, in Misuzulu, he's called Imbube. Isilo. He's got the same power and aura that a lion has. So it is just an old tradition that we have. And I noticed that on Twitter and in social media, people are having an alternative reality than what we have as AmaZulu. So it's something that is happening, that will happen, and he did it legally. And don't forget, you're in the Zulu kingdom. So this belongs to him. I mean, even, the game reserves, all those lions out there, and all the game are in the kingdom. He is the king of the Zulu nation and the kingdom. So we don't have an issue with that. And like I'm saying, let us not forget that it's a very exciting time for us.
When we talk about, the lion hunt, and we look at everything else that has surrounded the build-up to this day, last Sunday we saw Prince Makate also entering the kraal in Ngcobo. I think it was Mtanda, as well as the announcement yesterday by Prince Misuzulu. So what I'm trying to get at here is, if you don't do the lion hunt, does that take away any form of legitimacy for others who are saying that they're the rightful heirs to the throne?
Unfortunately, the act of the hunting of the lion is one of the many things that a Zulu king has to undertake and take part in. So I just want to stick with His Majesty King Misuzulu Zwelithini right now. He's legitimate. He was born in the right household. We've been through this before. So people can do what they want. It's their democratic right. But right now, we're concentrating on the coronation that's going ahead. In fact, tomorrow is just the culmination of what has been happening for a couple of days already.
I mean, some would still say, though, if you look at the lineage of the Zulu kings, that there isn't any set stipulation in terms of how a king is elected. How would you respond to those critics, especially now with the other two names that have been brought forward? It's created a lot of confusion. So from a customary perspective, once more, is there a set stipulation or rule about how this is done?
There is minimum requirements that go with being a Zulu king. You need to be born in a correct correct household, meaning esigodlweni, and it depends who your mother is. The late Nkosi Mantombi, she was a princess from Swaziland, and therefore that's a stipulation number one. Number two is that she got the ilobolo, her ilobolo was offered to the royal Swazi family from the nation. That's another stipulation. So those are the two critical things. Who offered ilobolo to her people? And if it is a nation, it means she's going to bear the future king. There is no confusion about that. Remember, Prince Magade grew up in the same household with the current king, here Gwakangela. But it was very clear who was going to be king. Because Princess Magade, all the necessary cultural things and processes were never performed for him. Because it was very clear, there was no confusion who the future king is going to be. And the issue about the line, I forgot to tell you, the person who actually started that process was King Shaka Ilembe, because he killed the lion barehanded. So from that day onwards, all the kings have to emulate that bravery and courage. So like I'm saying again, it is not only the lion that he needs to be killed. There's a whole lot of situations that take place even behind closed doors that ensure that the future king rules with harmony, with wisdom. And tomorrow is one of the main things that's going to happen tomorrow is that the British they put a crown on the head. For the Zulu, you go to the kraal, and whereby your immediate family and Ibuto of His Majesty, it then gets introduced to his ancestors, the previous kings, to say, here is your son, who is now going to take over this prestigious opportunity of being the Zulu king, and as well as to the people. But the important thing about Esibayeni is to ensure that the Zulu kings, the previous ones, are with him, give him bravery, and I guess wisdom, to be able to be a king that knows how to manage such a complex and a very important nation as Amazulu.
Speaking of what else is happening tomorrow, we understand that the lion is in the kraal now. What else is yet to take place? I mean, just off air I was commenting about how cold it is, and you were saying that there's a reason for even the way the weather is right now.
Yes, my eyes are watering. It's so dusty. It's whenever serious or important activities happen in the royal family, especially around His Majesty, where it rains, it gets cold. It means, our ancestors are here, the Zulu gods are here. You can just feel them in the air. You can just feel it. I mean, the atmosphere here is pregnant with a lot of excitement and their presence. Because I don't know if you are aware that as soon as His Majesty had finished the hunt, some of the cows went wild. And it's also another sign to say, His Majesty, the process has started. Tomorrow is just the icing on the cake.
And what happens after he has entered the kraal? What other procedures need to take place? For instance, are we going to see him today? In what form? Does he have to be hidden away somewhere and we'll only see him tomorrow? For those who may not be au fait with the matters of the Zulu nation, just take us through the process.
The process is that after the hunt, they do sacred rituals that only the royal family would know about. It is not for us, the subjects, to even talk about. Similarly today, whatever happens is happening behind closed doors. Tomorrow morning, at some point, he's going to go to the certain part of the kraal. Certain things are going to happen there. Whatever it does, it is not for public consumption because it's some of our secrets as the Zulu. And then when that process is done, he'll then step out of that part of the sacred kraal, and then everybody, all the thousands will be here, will be saying Bayete. Then we know we've got a king. And then, all hell will break loose. We'll be so excited.
All hell will break loose. Let's hope it doesn't happen in court as well, in terms of the Supreme Court of Appeal. At this stage, Hugo, anything is possible in terms of the legal processes, not ruling out the possibility of a court interdict. But Dr. Shalom Bata here saying there's nothing that's stopping them. In fact, behind me is that sacred kraal. In fact, there's a space within the kraal that has, that's where the lion is, the one that the king hunted yesterday. Sacred and private rituals will be taking place. But as far as here, KwaKhangela Mankengane, it's all systems go for the traditional coronation of King Misuzulu, kaZwelithini.
Ziyanda, Ngcobo, thank you kindly for your time. That's where we'll leave it this morning.